So thank you, Bruce, for making my job absolutely insanely difficult. The title of my presentation is Getting It Right the First Time. Thankfully, for those of you who have been to a couple of these, this should be not 100% new, but maybe a little bit new. Before I dive straight into the actual content, this is sort of the interactive part at the end of the day. I know it's tough. Show of hands, how many are brand new to enablement, like less than 5 years? Wonderful. How many of you have been in enablement between 5 to 10 years? Okay, and how many of you have actually done the enablement and or change man function for more than 15 years? Ooh, a smalling, dwindling number. Oh, that's unfortunate. Part of the reason why I am up here, and you'll notice that I'm going to lean into the term why, is that I'm hoping that I can gain your trust and understanding in saying that, yes, I am in fact older than I look. Thank you. Black don't crack. Anyway, truthfully, I've been doing this for about 20 years, both in an enablement, change man, program man, and training, both in carrying a bag, as well as working with a large SaaS, industrial, and otherwise. It's a checkered history. Part of the reason why I say checkered is that what you have heard a lot today has been a lot of stories of success, lots of stories about how I did it right. I would love for you to learn how I fucked it up. Excuse my language. Because I am really good at messing up. But the amazing thing about messing up is that you learn, and you learn amazingly well what not to do the next time. That being said, really, if you take nothing away, why you should believe me is I'm a survivor. I've done this before. I feel like I need a Beyonce backup, I'm a survivor. Anyway, point being that the enablement function, for those of you who are relatively new, for those of you who have been here for a while, ultimately it's picking and choosing battles and understanding what your game plan is on a grand scale, and then figuring out how to, get it all to work. But if nothing else, after the end of today, which is very likely everything will be forgotten, you will understand why, hint, why I am hoping you will take away the nuggets of information that all of these amazing speakers have been giving, myself included, maybe not so amazing. That being said, enablement is both a catalyst and a capstone. Why do I say this? For those of you who have probably encountered this, as we all have, you are thrust into a situation where it's like, we have to enable them. Previously, I'd say about 10 years ago, it used to be, we have to train them. Prior to that, it was, we have to do change management. Well, if you're seeing a trend here, historically, things tend to go cyclically, and everybody's looking for that silver bullet. And the bullet du jour is enablement, which thankfully means that we're all in the right place and headed in the right direction. And in many cases, a lot of people think, this is where we start. Well, yeah, absolutely. You want to start with training, or you want to start with content, or you want to start with an idea. But ultimately, it's all about starting in one place and figuring out how to navigate to that next one, and what are each of the steps along the way. This is one of my more glorious failures. I had an amazing opportunity to lead the enablement and training for the University of California. That is all 20, and that's not being hyperbolic or humble bragging, it's true. It's all 20 universities, laboratories, business schools, and law schools to make an ERP transition to PeopleSoft. All of your California state dollars, if you are a state citizen, is being spent, a good chunk of it, in just managing HR paperwork. It was hell, because all 20 universities had their own thing going, and every single university is non-hierarchical. There was no structure. The janitor had the exact same amount of say as the comptroller or the CFO. And from an enablement perspective, it was both amazing and positively terrifying. Where did I start? I started with the people. I'm hoping you're kind of seeing the trend as to why I started with the people. Because this change was happening to these individuals, not for them, not around them. It was happening to them. And in recognizing that it happened to them, all of the other stuff that was sort of satelliting around them, these other people changes, the process changes, or even the product that we were introducing didn't really matter unless I had a very clear line of understanding about why they should care about these other satellites. My spectacular failure was this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. I approached this in completely the wrong way. I approached this like this was an industrial rollout, and I used classical organizational change man processes, which are very clearly aligned to 1940, 1950, 1960, which are all about the top down, and I got taken to task. My initial attempts were complete rejections and complete failures because I failed to do the key things that as enablement professionals, I hope you can learn from. I organizationally never prepared myself, my team, or the broader program to address any of these things. I was simply an order taker. We needed to roll out this product, so I rolled it out. Figured out the sections, figured out the timing, figured out, the entire project. I had it all ready to go, but I never once figured out who was impacted and what to assess. And it was a big job, so I kind of skipped over it. I didn't want to address it. I had exactly, and I, hand to God, I'm not lying, I had exactly 8 months to figure out how in the hell I was going to train over 200,000 people with an undefined budget, an extremely short timeline, and an incomplete product. I know all of us have done this, but I will not lie to you. I was having nightly terror attacks, not panic attacks, but terror attacks, because I was going with a classical process that would not apply. But saving grace, down from the heavens, came this amazing mentor. And she introduced me at the time, this was back in 2010 and 11, or 2012. She introduced me to change management. And the reason why I want to bring up change management is that the one thing it gave me was some frameworks, consistent frameworks that I didn't have to recreate. And everything that you have heard today, a lot of them take a lot of very strong and similar pieces from those change management frameworks. So, hopefully, you were able to glean amazing stories from the playbook discussion, the Republic, state, and federal discussions, the business personas, all of that. But remember, you don't have to grind the wheel into the sand. And that's the one thing that I'm hoping is consistent, is that, the amazing speakers that have been up here, they've been able to share their wisdom. If you forget everything, which Lord knows I probably will, because, I'm cute, not smart, is that, there's frameworks out there to help you. And really, the way that I have taken that interpretation of it is I've put it into 3 major buckets. Right? The satellites that are impacting the people. Is it a product change? That's really simple in my mind. That's like, I show you how to click here. You click there, yay, you did it. Is it a process change? Okay, this is a little bit more complex. Maybe I need to talk to the managers to get you and the manager to agree. And then the people. Ooh, that's the doozy. That's the hearts and minds. And change management will help you immensely there. There's a process called ADCAR, ProSci, all of the rest. Don't worry about the acronym soup. But ultimately, the frameworks are there to help you get everybody, and I do mean everybody, to that place of after, not stuck in the before. That's particular to the people. But guess what? It also applies to the process. It also applies to the product. So then, talked about tools. I gave you my spectacular failure. I've already leaned in a little bit to, some of the solution. I'm hoping you can kind of see where I'm leaning with this. Maybe, maybe not. But it goes from the standard place where most people think of is what's in it for me. I actually would say that this is way too narrow. What's in it for me? Well, you get more money, right? No. It's about why Do I need to invest my time and energy? It's being preeminently empathetic to the individuals who are making the change. From the sales leader perspective, why should I care? Why are you asking me to invest in this? Why are you asking me to take away from, my general paperwork, and now I'm being asked to train my people? What the hell? I thought that was you, right? Maybe you've heard that, maybe you haven't. Why should I invest my time? Why can't I keep doing what I've been doing? And if you aren't able to answer these 7 questions, either in your charter for a program or intervention, let me clarify, a sales program like onboarding, can you answer this to your executive staff? If you can't, maybe sit back and think a little bit harder about, have you got the answers for this? For a organizational move, let's say you're moving upstream, you're going enterprise. Can you tell your enterprise reps, your mid-market reps, any of them answers to this? Can they answer that sufficiently? Not even adequately, just sufficiently. I'm looking for the floor right now. Then maybe you might want to take a little time. And the reason why I'm using this kind of context, this kind of language, authenticity. Bruce laid it out beautifully. I'm not in your upline. I'd rather you come to me and tell me to my face, that's BS. You don't care about me. You don't care why this is happening. Wait a minute, hold on, let's talk about it. So you say you don't know why it's happening. Let's discuss. And hopefully I'll have the content in place. You don't know why this is happening. Hold on. Maybe I do. I don't have time. Why should I change? Guess what? I've either got content or I've got a process or I've got a conversation that's waiting for you in your through line. Starting to see the through line here? I'm going to lean really, really heavily on the why, because I'm hoping if you can answer these 7 questions whenever you're designing an intervention, which is like, hey, we are getting only 60% of our MQLs to demo. What the heck? We need training. Well, hopefully when you're designing a program, you're going with, okay, is this a product, process, or person? And then why in the hell should the audience care? And if you can answer these, you can then successfully make sure in a very short amount of time, you can push through whatever it is the audience needs. Kind of making sense? Last big triad, and I'm stealing from my other presenters previously. You'll notice that triads work really well. There's a psychological perspective out there, and there's been studies done, lots of them, about how the actual number that most people, number sequence and or sequence of information that people can remember is between 5 and 7. He's actually right, Brad, is closer to 3. So I stick with 3. I like triads. Alignment. Story time. Aside from the GIF, back in 2015, I was at Salesforce. I was asked to support the rollout of 2 brand new product clouds during Dreamforce, and I had 3 weeks. Do you guys know how many salespeople are in Salesforce currently? Now it's 2019. Let's subtract that to 2015. There are about 10,000 employees. Of those 10,000 employees, about 5,000 were salespeople. Thank God I didn't have to train all 5,000. No. Oh God. Just thinking about it makes my stomach twist. But the point being is that they asked me to teach about 1,000 people, split them up to 500 each into 2 different product clouds. We've got to train them. Okay, is the first thought. Where do I start? Okay. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because we found out through market research that these industries-focused salespeople are incredibly successful. In fact, they're 150 times more successful. Perfect. So why should the salespeople change? Well, our current practices aren't working if we just simply place them into those new product clouds. Well, duh. So then why should somebody else invest in making that change? Well, maybe it's money. It's like, no. You're asking them to change their process. So why are we changing their process? Kept digging. Ultimately, what we found out is that the marketing group wasn't even talking to the leadership group. They had entirely different understandings of what it meant to go to market. How many times have you guys encountered that? I hope never. Please say never. Please clap. The point being is that what we ended up doing was just getting everybody on the same page based on definitions. The marketing group kept saying customer. The superb stellar sellers were like, no, if you're going into healthcare, you don't call doctors and patients customers. Duh, was the response. And it was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, we need to align. One of those simple things that you think everybody's saying the same thing when in fact, no, they're not. This is probably the biggest lift. It's just getting everybody saying the same thing, understanding the same thing, agreeing to the same thing. Whether it's metrics, definitions, process, and the rest. Next big step is alignment by audience. So who's doing what? What are they going to be doing and how are they going to do it? The details are there. Trust me, lean into change management. It's all there. If you look up change management, do a Google search, you'll find all of this. In fact, this was a 2-minute Google search before I gave it over to Jordan, so thank you for dealing with me in last-minute deck changes, which happen a lot. The other thing is, of course, adoption and acceleration. Crawl, walk, run. You guys have probably heard this as well. It's the same. Get it out the door. Get it at least started. Continue to coach, support your leadership team, support them, and give them safe places to fall. Because I can tell you, without that, with just the, throw it out there, it's not going to work. You got to give the sales team, the sales leadership, the sales executives, the opportunity to fuck up. Because we learn best when we make mistakes. Really good example. Oh boy. Personal story I wasn't sure I was going to share, but I'm going to share it now anyhow. One of the more technically complicated consulting gigs that I had was working for Sony Electronics America. They wanted help in rolling out and implementing a trademark and patent product. This was back in 1999. It was a while ago. And what they needed was a technical training, but they also wanted to have somebody who had a legal background, of which I have just enough to be dangerous. I basically went to my contracts class and realized I didn't want to be an attorney. But for some reason, that qualified me. Anyway, I got into the situation. I never stopped to ask the whys. I never stopped to consider the drip or piecemeal education. And I simply word vomited everything I could find from my original torts class. That contract lasted about a month, if I'm lucky. If you ask Sony Electronics America, they'll be like, who? Never mind the fact that it was almost 20 years ago now. It was a spectacular failure in which I violated every single rule of Change Man. And it never goes away. So that being said, in the end, bad stories, good stories, we can talk about all of them. I'm hoping that you leave this conversation with 2 sets of 3s. 1, in the enablement function, you are really going to be focused on the day-to-day, which is how do you get people to adopt? How do you get people to accelerate that adoption? And how do you make sure people are aligned? The way that you do it is you figure out, how is this going to happen? Is this a product change? Is this a process change? But ultimately, do people know why? And do they have faith in the ability for you to answer that why? So that being said, let me tie this all up in a nice, neat little bow, hopefully. Enablement being both a capstone and a catalyst being that really your role as an enablement leader, participant, part of a team, is that you've got to ask the difficult questions like why, and be dogged in finding the answers. Because if you don't answer the why, it won't go right. And I hate to put it that way. But ultimately, answering the why will eliminate a lot of those little gotchas that are going to come up further down the line. because then you can learn how to be resilient if you have the core understanding of why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Why would someone care? And why should we change? Capstone, the idea behind Capstone being that it would hopefully, over the course of all of the other channels that you have, whether it's training, just in time, video, role play, content submission and review, deal desks, and all the rest, everything that has been presented so far is that it is an intention to prove to both your higher ups, your directs, and laterally that yes, enablement is worth it. Because we are still a very nascent role industrially. It has only been around for about 10 years, as the gentleman from Guru, whose name I have eminently forgotten, has just emphasized. We still have to prove ourselves daily. Hopefully not daily if you're really good, like some of the other speakers are. Me, daily, because as I've mentioned, I mess up regularly. So that being said, hopefully once you've passed your first or second, fall flat, by positioning yourself as a partner, answering your whys, making sure you are clearly communicating out, this is a project of this size and it does this because they need to know why and here's how, that you'll avoid many of the glorious mistakes I encountered. And that's pretty much it. Oops. Totally open for questions. Nothing's out of bounds. Quite literally, I have no filter. No questions? I was that good? I know it's the end of the day. Yes?
How do you think about your process with ad cards and others when it's a people, product, or process change? Not changing scope or scale, or you're using a totally different framework?
That's a great question. So the question was based upon the project size or the project type. How, what, where do I use a framework? Well, people, I will definitely go with ADKAR just because it's pretty comprehensive, and also because hearts and minds, that's always going to, the hub and spoke model, as you've heard, it's going to include multiple individuals, multiple players, and it's going to take a while. And again, part of the reason why I lean into the change management format is because there's a lot of data out there to prove that it works. The nice part about it is that if you ever run up against leaders who are like, give me data, give me evidence. Hold on. Here's the data. Here's a report. Here's, studies done at Harvard. Here's studies done at Oxford. Here's studies done at Princeton. Which do you want? I can do them all. So, it really depends. When it comes to projects that tend to be just about product, relatively simple, could be, as short as maybe, if you're good, I would say as short as maybe a week. If you really know your audience, you could probably get it done that fast. And, the metrics that are associated to it are, I hate to say it, sometimes it's just butts and seats, and you got to be okay with that. You can't, roll everything out. It's like, hey, we got a new product. We're rolling it out. Okay, how many people attended? Awesome. Next. Any other questions? Oh my God, I'm that good. Woohoo. And it's also the end of the day.
Not quite the end of the day, but we're getting close.
We're getting close.
I like the idea of failure. I don't know if you guys have the same experience. And once again, just kind of coming from the field, and as it relates to sales enablement, is I do think it's important to telegraph your failures. It gives you credibility with the field every single time. So if they know that it was a cross-functional group and they were taking their best shot at it and you screwed it up, that's fine. If you telegraph it, the sellers will understand that you're not going to waste their time. They're not going to have to do something out of ego. If it didn't work, call it and move to the next one. That's kind of been at least my experience. I don't know if that applies
absolutely
broadly, but.
Well, I will say for myself, humility and a dogged desire to fall on my butt will win people over pretty consistently. I do not claim to know much more than, the person to my left or right, but I will claim to have more panache when presenting it. That being said, you're absolutely right. A safe place to fail and owning the failure and being able to show others how to chart a way forward.
Yeah, in reality, when you're looking at sales, I can only speak for technology sales and enterprise style selling motion. If you're not failing, you're definitely not moving fast enough. If we're waiting till we're perfect, the market's going to move. So it needs to be kind of in the ethos of the company that you're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to move, you're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to move.
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. Well, thank you so much, Kira.
Thank you.